style activists, the government said nothing. The media wouldn't report on it. They just let all these churches across Canada burn. And then you had like smug atheists on social media basically celebrating it. And this was just allowed. Like they didn't even really properly try to solve these crimes. So in Canada, it got to that point of literally just burning churches across the country and the government staying silent, the media staying silent. It was so obvious what was going on.
Yeah, Simon. So before we continue, I think there's some feedback on somebody's mic. So let's maybe I don't know what it is. So just test it out for a second. Like I don't hear it anymore, honestly. Simon, say something real quickly just to make sure it's not your mic or something.
It's my mic.
That's a good test. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds that the feedback is gone now, but Simon, I saw that story and I never heard about what happened afterwards. And what's y'all's take on it, Brianna, Kevin? What do y'all think about that?
I only heard limited about it. I got to be honest. I don't think I know enough to make a full-on comment on that one.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how big that was in the U.S. because I don't remember hearing a lot about that.
Well,
yeah, the Canadian media is very, very tightly controlled here. So you guys.
I will say that because I heard you mentioning MK Ultra and stuff like that, and that's just always a good time to remind everybody, like, don't trust your government. They will lie to you. They've lied to you a lot in the past, and they will continue to lie to you. So always be reasonably skeptical.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why they're doing it too. Look at it. Every time they lie, they just accidentally take more power to themselves and they become bigger. It's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. It's a full-on conspiracy, to be honest, to manipulate perspectives, minds, fearmonger, do all these various things in order for us to see different liberties and different rights that we have, because the more power they have, the more control they have over you, the I don't even know what it is, but I feel like the better they sleep or something. I really don't understand what it is, but
well, I think when we look at like the primary strategy, is that feedback back?
No,
okay.
No, feedback's gone.
Good. When you look at the primary strategy of like trying to establish world power, right? To try to establish a centralized form of world power, that's
actually,
what a lot of it.
Hold up 1 second. That feedback is back. So it might be.
Hey, let's see. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't see that so far, but yeah. Go ahead. Continue.
So you look at like the primary strategy that we're dealing with. If there's all this consolidation of power, if like the media conglomerates are serving this intent to create centralized global power, then you look at what kind of strategies and operations are they using to do that. And part of that is about degrading the ability for nation states to have like a unified public and have like communities that are unified. And that's part of what they're doing in attacking the ability for people to have solid communities and like hold these Judeo-Christian values together. When you degrade and divide nation states, you take away nationalism, you take away religious identity and religious unity and community, you create a vacuum and you create the kind of chaos necessary for them to eventually justify, I think we need a world power to step in. Your nation is collapsing. Your nation's on the brink of civil war. I think you might need this globalist entity to come in and help stabilize things. To me, that is like part of the long-term plan here. They're aiming to create a kind of destabilization and demoralization that will create a power vacuum that justifies that kind of global power grab. That's when you look at like, World Economic Forum and all that. They're all pushing narratives that head things in that direction.
Yeah,
that's a good point. And yeah, you're right. Honestly, that's what it seems like. That they want to push us towards this like that we have to have this one world government essentially.
What's crazy is like,
yeah, what's
I
up?
know you said you're Jewish. I don't know where you guys stand faith wise, but like the Bible literally predicted this to a T thousands of years ago, which is really, really cool to me. Like I get excited talking about this stuff because like we were warned,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, yeah. I wish I was religious enough to be like, yeah, that's in the Torah, because I'm sure it is, I'm sure that's in the Old Testament. But to switch gears just a little bit, I saw this breaking story today because we're talking, we're in a political.
Before you guys move into the next story, I'm gonna hop off because I do have some things I have to do.
Absolutely.
But it was great chatting.
Yeah.
Great meeting you, Bree.
Take care, Bree.
Bye, guys.
So let's get into some political cycle stuff, because I saw this break from the Daily Mail, and I'm sure that'll get us into more interesting conversation. But Nikki Haley did cheat on her husband Michael, had affairs with him, a Commons consultant, and a married South Carolina lobbyist. So Simon, I'm not sure how much you know about American politics, but I'm sure you know a little bit. You're pretty involved with it. All right. So what do you guys think when you see a Republican conservative presidential candidate, supposed to be one at least, in a headline like this break? Like, I don't know. I'll start with you, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to this one, I hate to say I'm not surprised. I mean, it's kind of like I heard you guys talking about Dave Chappelle earlier a little bit. It reminds me of the little joke that he had in his most recent special about how Madison Cawthorn comes out and says that there's all these wild sex parties in DC, but he probably didn't get invited because he's a cripple. And so, but that it's really, I mean, it's true. I mean, everybody kind of already knew that. We know that a lot of the people in DC, again, it's not binding by party lines, that they're involved in a lot of degenerate behavior. And so when it comes to Nikki Haley doing this, I'm not surprised. I mean, heck, and look, I like Trump as much as the next person when it comes to being a presidential candidate, but if we're going to talk about moral equivalencies, well, he's pretty similar. I mean, he had multiple affairs on record. His Stormy Daniels one is probably, besides Monica Lewinsky, one of the most publicized sex scandals in American history. And so this is kind of something that for anybody, if any of the candidates, besides maybe Ron DeSantis, it's the only one where there's no really concrete rumor about, or anybody that's actually in level of competition. Besides Ron DeSantis, I mean, if Trump tries to go after Nikki for it, it'd be kind of bogus because he did the same stuff, and so it'd make him look like a hypocrite. But it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. I mean, that's simply what it sucks. It's a sad state of affairs, but nobody, this is my firm belief, is when it comes to running for president of the United States, I don't believe anybody who is of perfect, upstanding level of citizenry would probably be running for that, because it's psychotic. I mean, it's psychotic to run for president. All that you have to go through, everything that people are throwing at you, you kind of you got to be a little crazy and do crazy shit.
I feel like the point here is that it shouldn't matter because they're all doing it. They're humans, whatever, you know.
That's not, I don't want to say that though, because it should matter. The sad thing is it doesn't.
That it does. Okay, I got that. What about you, Simon? What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's true that when you get into politics, you know, the nature of politics is definitely about attacking. It's about attacking each other. It's been that way for a long time. It's about attacking people's character. It's about character assassination. And so there's just a lot of that that's going on. So I think in politics, in where we're at in the war, you have to look at it from, you know, the sort of global battlefield, and who is, you know, despite maybe their personal life, contributing to the uniparty and who is not, you know. And the uniparty is a really helpful way to look at it, because then you get rid of the idea that it's Democrats and Republicans, you know, whose actions, whose policies have advanced the uniparty that seems to be tied to this globalist push, and whose haven't. And then, you know, you have to, of course, look at people's personal lives to an extent, because you do want to look at character and you do want to look at principles. And so I think you have to find a balance between those things, because you're right, like, it is unlikely for people of a certain level of purity to get to that level of politics. Mm-hmm. So once you accept that, then you're like, okay, if we've accepted that, even though, you know, we want to hold a higher standard, we still have to confront the reality of where we're at. And so then you have to look at, okay, what do we give support to if we're looking at this as far as warfare goes, if we're looking at the ability to win, to, you know, stabilize the nation state so there isn't that power vacuum that enables more globalist power, then you get into, you know, a lot of people who support Trump for those reasons. That's like what's his name, that we were talking about him earlier, that he was one of the other people that stood up at the World Economic Forum.
Oh,
spoke out. No, the other guy. I posted it on my Twitter. Who was it?
He was are we talking about the CEO of like JP Morgan or something like that? That came out and said like, yeah, Trump was actually really good?
It was Kevin Roberts.
That's
yes.
it.
That's another good thing, Kevin. I'm gonna get that pulled up.
Yeah.
That was a really good video. So, and so this was an interesting example of that. So it's like, of course you can play the same sort of gotcha politics. You can go through Trump's history, and you can of course find, some corruption. When you're like a billionaire reality star, like you're probably not living to the level of purity that a lot of people would like. At the same time, what he's pointing out in that video, what Kevin Roberts is pointing out, is all the precise reasons why the globalists are specifically afraid of Trump and what Trump intends to do and will do if he's presidency. So, that perspective is so, I think it's so interesting to consider, and it has to be weighed against our desire to seek a level of purity in our leaders based on what's possible.
Oh yeah. I want to show you guys this video while we're talking about this pretty much. So it's actually different than what you were talking about, Simon. It's actually what Kevin started talking about, JP Morgan CEO. And I just want you guys to hear this. This isn't like
this is a different guy. Okay.
Conservative Trump liking guy. He's the opposite of all that stuff. So hear what he's saying here.
They're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them that you are like him. But I really think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. If you look, just take a step back, be honest. He's kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well. Tax reform worked. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He made right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. I don't like, but he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues, and that's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump. Why you're supporting
Trump? Hard to hate 75 million of your fellow Americans.
I agree. And the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really, like, can we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit? And I do think the economy will affect. I think this negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign.
Yeah. All right. So again, this guy isn't like a. I'm back. Sorry, my phone locked. I was putting my thing back on there. But this guy isn't like some MAGA fanatic or even likes Trump or anything like that. And he realizes that already. So, I mean, what do you guys think? We're pretty much talking about that. You know, it's like a unity party thing, essentially.
No,
yeah, him saying that this isn't about family values for a lot of people, it's just about him being right. I guess that's kind of what, what I was pointing out there, that sometimes it's not about the purity in that regard.
100%. And when it comes to what he had to say, I mean, that's how so many Americans think too. I mean, when you think about it, when they bring up those numbers, like the 70 million or 75 million, whatever, you're half and half of the country. Most people are not the ones that are out with the MAGA hat on or dyeing their hair different colors to support Biden, whatever the lefties do. Like, most people are not those. Those are the loudest voices. Those are the ones that are making the most noise. But most people that are in those respective numbers there are somewhere in the middle, and where they're like, they ask themselves this simple question of, am I better off now than I was 4 years ago? Which party do I tend to be better with historically in my life? Like, which one do I feel like I'm better off with usually? Which one, oftentimes they'll ask themselves the question, which do I feel good about myself voting for? Because of the narratives pushed in the media, based on whatever media they watch. Does voting Republican make me feel better because I feel like I'm making smart, moral, religious decisions? Or does voting Democrat make me feel better because I want to be accepting, tolerant, and kind? They ask themselves a lot of those very, very base and honestly kind of shallow questions. And that's how they vote. And so when the JP Morgan Chase guy comes out here and he's like, let's just try to have respect for people, because like, if somebody's voting because they had more money in their pocket under Trump, or they see what's going on at the border, and maybe they have people that have been impacted by basically having open borders, having a lot of illegal immigration. He's saying, maybe we should kind of consider why people vote the way they do instead of just automatically going extremist, racist, homophobe, sexist, transphobe, all that kind of crap. And I think it's reasonable, and it's a moderate stance. Honestly, I think most people genuinely do see it that way.
Yeah. For that to be on a mainstream media news show is, I think, a big deal. I mean, that's a big win, like you said, for those people that are moderate, for those people that aren't those extremists. The media does a lot of work to uplift the most extreme voices on the left and make them seem like a bigger group than they are. You know, I think that's part of the narrative warfare as well, is to make the extreme leftists seem like they are representative of this massive portion of the left, when I don't really think that's true. I know that's not true here in Canada for a fact. You know, we were talking about this in our chat today, you know, that Justin Trudeau, he's the least supported prime minister in Canadian history. He has the smallest amount of support than any prime minister ever has. And the way to see that is that he has a small little radicalized group, and the media in Canada that is 100% state media. So you don't have any mainstream media that isn't really run by the state. They uplift that little radical group and make it seem like that's the sentiments of the majority of Canadians. They work very hard to create that illusion. And if you do the math, it can't be true. It's nonsense. And I'm sure there's something equivalent going on in the US.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes I fault us conservatives and people on the right for making this mistake of grouping all Democrats under the same umbrella, because it's not true. I mean, I talked about this yesterday, that when you talk about LGBTQ, like sex change and all this stuff, you actually have to be specific. You can't say Democrats. I mean, yes, you have Democrat governors who enable all this stuff, but when you look at the polls, it's like 70% of Democrats actually agree with you on these issues, that, you know, kids at grade school shouldn't be educated on this stuff and stuff. It's usually like a better term for when I'm talking about all this, you know, extreme left stuff, is almost calling them ultra progressives, because that's what they really are. It's not your classic Democrat center left world, you know. It's not independents. It's not even like some Democrats, like some hardcore modern day Democrats. It's these ultra progressive Marxists. And yes, I think that sometimes we on the right side, we cause that, you know, and then we may even alienate even people that we can sometimes bring over to our side, even to vote for more Republican candidates, by saying you all Democrats are, you know, at fault.
Yeah, no, I try to come up with like more colloquial sayings, like alphabet mafia is one I use a lot, or like snow cone color hair motherfuckers. That's another one.
I like it.
There's things like where it's like poking a little bit of fun, but like, and it might piss off the right people. But if it pisses you off, then you're not somebody that I necessarily need to be associated with anyway. So.
Oh yeah. No, it's yeah. I've caught myself, like I do this a lot because it's so easy to say Democrats, right? Because getting into the specifics is a little hard, and I found that issue with the word liberal, honestly, because if I really think about it, liberal values like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, right to my property, right for the government not to search me without a, you know, unwarranted, essentially. Those are liberal values that they're essentially enshrined in the Constitution. And so I go back and forth with calling people that I disagree with like libtards, for example, right? Because it's like, well, you know, because there is in political science, there's a term, liberal conservatism, and they wouldn't have an oxymoron as a term, right? So the opposite of conservative seems to be really progressive. They don't want to have these traditions. They are not for the liberal values that we have in the Constitution, because they're not originalists and all this stuff. So it's a war of language, honestly.
I have a question for you on that one then, because here's the thing I think about is, because I'm split. Because half of me is 100% in agreement with you in the fact of like, yeah, we have definitions to our words and we should keep them and we should hold them in high regard. But the thing is that the people that we really are kind of fighting against in a lot of this stuff do not care about definitions. There was a meme of J.B. Pritzker, Illinois' governor, that went around and went kind of viral for a while, of him just listing racist, sexist, homophobe, transphobe, like listing all of those things.